Back, folks. Got another special episode, Ghostface commentary for you. It's me, Ghostface. Mask is coming off early. So, shout out to Luke Thomas, my favorite MMA media journalist, for delivering the news and uploading a video shortly, not too long ago on YouTube, announcing that Greg Hardy is going to be on ESPN, the ESPN debut card, on the same card as that Rachael Ostovich girl, which is very interesting. We'll get into that in a minute. I'm sure those of you in the know already have a clue. I know how impatient you guys do, but we're also going to do a breakdown. We have not caught up with Greg Hardy for a minute. Guys have 3 pro fights. I did a breakdown of the first one. He's been active since then. He's got a development deal, which is super interesting. First time to my knowledge that the UFC has done this. And yeah, I'm following his career with some great interest right now, especially how exciting the heavyweight division is at the moment. I don't know at what point he would be a credible prospect, but it's fascinating for sure. So I know how impatient you guys get. We're going to jump right into the fight breakdown. This is his latest fight in XFN against I believe the guy's name is Rachael Jones. And yeah, so we'll get right into it. I've got the video all queued up. I will provide it when this goes uploaded right up here so that you guys can watch the action along. We're just going to break down, see what kind of improvements Mr. Hardy has been making, what kind of weaknesses he has, if any. To my knowledge, this fight is pretty short. So, without further ado, may not be much to break down, but we're going to get into it. Cue the audio over. Alright. And 3, 2, 1.
It's a mixed martial arts heavyweight bout that for 3
Take
rounds,
that volume down a little bit. With feedback loop. Alright, XFN announcer. Getting ready to announce our fighters in this bout. Opponent looking very game. Rocking the red shorts from Mr. Jones. Jones is a good last name to have if you're in combat sports, by the way. John Jones, Roy Jones Jr. 2 of my favorite fighters of all time. Very exciting finishers. Then we got Mr. Greg Hardy fighting out of the other corner. Red corner. Doing a weird like Illuminati thing. Throwing a knee, looking pretty agile. I like it. You know, one thing about Greg Hardy, this is kind of a weird observation, but like he has a really evil look in his eye right before he fights. I don't know what that tells about his fighting ability, but man, he looks like a stone cold killer. He's got this "don't mess with me, bro" kind of stare. I kind of dig that, especially in a heavyweight. Here we go. Fight announcer getting the crowd pumped up. Stare off Greg Hardy with his hands on his knees, looking like he's ready to tackle this dude. Greg Hardy, for those of you who don't know, I can't imagine who would be living on a rock and doesn't. Former Dallas Cowboy. The controversial exit, we'll get into that. So one thing I'm noticing right off the bat, both guys with pretty good jabs, but Greg Hardy utilizing the jab. I like seeing new fighters set things up off the jab, particularly MMA fighters, because I feel like it's a very underutilized weapon. Ooh, I like that. He's getting his head off the center line. He ducks, and he's throwing a right uppercut. Good. Oh, good body shot, too. He is mixing it up. Clearly been working on his hands. Good takedown defense. Greg Hardy with a good sprawl, and what he's doing right now that I like is he's circling to his opponent's back. A lot of guys get that twisted, and they circle out, and it makes it really easy for your opponent to grab a hold of your leg and either get back up to their feet or reverse the takedown. Hammer fisting this guy. Oh, this fight's over. He's about to go. Yep. Mr. Jones is out cold. Impressive bout for Greg Hardy there. So he kind of had him in north-south position. He circled around Mr. Jones was not having it. He was not letting him have the back, so he circles around to north-south. They end up kind of pinned up against the side of the cage, and he gets an angle in on him and just starts hammer fisting the hell out of him. I don't know if you could get away with that at like the lighter weight class, but yeah, here we go with the replay. But I mean, heavyweights, shit. I wouldn't want that giant double XL size man pounding on the back of my head, side of the head. To be fair, it wasn't a dirty finish by any means. He definitely had him in the temple. Still looking super amped up. Look at Greg Hardy. Damn, he looks ready to go again. I'm sure he is. Clearly, these guys that he's fighting so far are not on his level. This is a third first-round finish for him. 4 if you include his amateur fight. It's always hard to say, particularly when you're talking about jumping over the elite professional level in the UFC, like when a guy is ready or not to go pro. But with this kid, I don't think there's any rush in him. You know what I mean? There's no hurry. He's got a lot of time to develop. That's the route they should be taking. That is the route Brock Lesnar did not take. Still managed to get UFC gold though, and still fighting. That fight coming up with DC. Let me know how you guys feel about that. I'm kind of mixed on. I was much more excited for Jones versus Lesnar, but whatever. Yeah, Greg Hardy with the Donkey Kong hammer fist just shuts this dude down. Yeah, you know what I would like to see? I see him throwing a lot of kicks in his warm-up. They're not super impressive, but for a guy who just picked up the sport as big as he is, he's definitely got some flexibility. I can tell he's working on them. I'd like to see him. I want to see him go longer than a minute or 2 minutes for that matter with somebody. They need to get him a step up in competition, but I want to see him utilize more of his weapons. I want to see what all is in his arsenal. I can't imagine his ground game is super developed at this point, but in my opinion, it's a lot easier to develop ground skills, grappling, submissions. Well, let me not say easier. It's you can pick it up quicker because it's more of a knowledge thing, whereas striking is much more about timing and reflexes. It takes a long time to develop your rhythm, and from what I'm seeing him on the stand-up, like he's just looking a little bit improved in every fight. It's hard to say because there's not a lot of fight tape on him, but even in this fight, I see him using the jab a lot, keeping that. The one thing I always tell people, if you really want to be able to tell when someone at the gym is like over there hitting the bag or something, if you want to tell somebody really knows how to fight, watch defensively where their other hand is when the other one is punching. Because a lot of people, they just they do power, they leave their chin like this because you can wing punches. But if you see somebody that's got that other hand tucked and they're firing and they bring that one right back, that's how you're supposed to fight. Cover up. If you see that and their hands are not leaving their chin and they're protecting themselves at all times, odds are really good that they know how to handle themselves. They've been in a fight or two. Like, that's a really good indicator because it's not natural. That is something you have to train. I like the fact that he was keeping that right hand tucked by the chin, leading with the jab, setting up that right. He even threw a nice body punch. I believe it was to the liver with a left hook. Yeah, pretty dope. Good for him. So that'll do it for that fight. But interesting to note, and I did not see this, and I wasn't going to make this video until I saw this, but Luke Thomas just posted a video reporting. So that girl, I'm going to butcher her name. I should have looked this up beforehand. I believe it's Ostrich or Ostianik. She is fighting Paige Van Zandt in the main event, and she was just recently victimized in a domestic violence case, sounding pretty Ostovich, Rachael Ostovich, sounding pretty severe by most reports. I think she had like a broken orbital, and there's not a whole lot of information out on it. Very recent. The point is, she's a victim of domestic violence, and we all know Greg Hardy, the reason why he was kicked out of the NFL, and probably the only reason that he has a UFC aspiration and training MMA, an MMA career, is because he was kicked out of the NFL for domestic violence, allegedly. Now, I say allegedly. Don't get mad at me. I understand. Like the convictions are pretty serious, and I'm very familiar. I looked at everything. I reviewed it before I made this video. I don't want to get into a lot of detail because I'm sure there's other videos out there who better cover that. But I say allegedly because essentially the victim in the case took a plea deal, and we all know what that means. She was bought out to not try him or whatever. That's the reason why he's here today and probably not behind bars. But all of that being said, look, I get it. I'm not a big fan of giving a platform for men in that category. That being said, what are you going to do? You can't take away the guy's ability to make a living forever. I don't know what kind of atonement he's made for that. I know he stopped drinking and doing drugs, allegedly. And hopefully he's on a healthy career path. That being said, I don't mean to sound cold and callous when I say this, but my fascination, my interest with the guy is solely on his competitive nature as an athlete. The fact that he is entering the UFC and he's going into the heavyweight division, a division that is very exciting to me right now, as a hot prospect and somebody who could potentially contend for the title, or at the very least, shake things up with some good fights. Can you imagine him fighting Derek Lewis? Derek Lewis talking all kinds of shit on Greg Hardy, has made his qualms with woman beaters very known through social media, about Travis Brown with his alleged domestic abuse and just him growing up. I think that's a good matchup. Definitely too early now, but that's an exciting fight. Come on, don't tell me you would not tune in to see that or be entertained by that. Now, it remains to be seen how he's going to act when he gets back in that spotlight. I don't know. It seems like he's taking this very seriously. I see improvement. I'm just fascinated to see where this is going to go and where his ceiling is going to end up. Now, all that being said, I'm a little bit on the Greg Hardy bandwagon, but I do think it's a little bit fucked up that they're going to put him on the same card as this girl that's headlining, just coming off the domestic abuse. That seems really weird to me. Really weird in a very overt kind of way. You know what I'm saying? We live in a day and age where it's really hard to tell what's real and what's fake. Trolling is a big thing, and it gets you fame, it gets you money. Clicks equals dollar signs, and it seems like people will do anything to get that. If you're hot on a mic and people start talking about you, you're going to get paid more. That's just a fact. I don't know. This is me being a little bit conspiratorial, but this just seems like a huge oversight to me. I can't imagine the matchmakers were just that unaware. And I get putting Greg Hardy on ESPN makes a little bit of sense, even though it's going to be controversial. Controversy is not always a bad thing. You're going to get more clicks. You're going to get more people tuning in when they hear, oh, the bad guy, Greg Hardy, the Dallas Cowboy. Oh, he's fighting now? They're going to tune in for that. Even if they hate the guy or if they love the guy, oh, I wonder what that guy's up to. They're going to do it. That makes a little bit of sense to me, but this doesn't make sense because it seems like such an obvious, blatant slap to Miss Rachael here. And I can't help but think that there is a possibility, just because seems like something so hard to overlook, that the UFC is aware of this and they're welcoming that controversy because they know it's going to generate a storyline, which is going to generate interest. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. Try to tune that out. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think. I find it very odd. I find it incredibly disrespectful. And I understand that there was a point in time where they weren't even sure if she was going to compete on this card. But she is, And I feel like that's weird. I think it would be interesting to see if they ever even consulted with her. And knowing the UFC's track record and their communication with fighters, I find that highly unlikely, as I'm sure you do too. But if they did, maybe that would change things a little bit. If they had a discussion with her, how do you feel about this? But, I mean, just given the fact that it's so recent and just given the nature of his background, regardless of, you know, your own opinions on that, there is a stigma attached to that. And I've seen some interviews with her, and she does seem very distraught about the situation. So I would be very interested to see what her opinion is. If it was me on the matchmaking side, I would want nothing to do with it. At the very least, I would consult her beforehand and see, because I'm not sure what kind of message that sends, especially if you're welcoming this guy as the second chance guy. I don't know, but I find that very interesting. I think that's the amoral part about it. I think you're a hypocrite if you're one of these people who's just hating on Greg Hardy, say he can't have a career. I don't like that. You know, people deserve second chances, third chances, whatever you want to say. He's on 3, 4, whatever. At the end of the day, I bet you'll be really surprised how many of these athletes have stuff going on behind the scenes that are way more egregious that you would never even know about, or that you never looked into. And furthermore, I bet a lot of you don't even know the details of the case. You just hear woman beater and automatically make a judgment. Now, I'm not defending the guy. I'm not. I don't stand by what he did whatsoever. But I am saying that I don't have a problem with him pursuing an athletic pursuit in MMA. That's what I'm saying. And I will tune in and watch, and I won't be ashamed about that. Now, this, I don't know about this, because like I said, the difference between giving Greg Hardy a chance and giving him a platform to perform and to compete as a professional athlete is a lot different than putting him in a position where it's somewhat disrespectful to a woman who has been through something very serious recently, you know, being a victim of domestic violence, having that issue brought up. You know, the media is just going to swamp her with questions about it, and that's what I find the most messed up, and what I think is really unfair about this whole thing. I don't like that, especially with that, you know, she hasn't had much time to process that and get that over. Having been somebody who, I have family members who have been a victim of domestic abuse in the past, I know that you know, it's not an easy thing to get over, especially in the most severe cases. It takes time, it takes counseling. And that's what I would be more sensitive to in this situation. But you guys let me know what you think. I find it interesting. Let me know what you think about Greg Hardy's progress as an MMA fighter, especially coming from an NFL background. We haven't really seen, we've seen a couple of fighters make that crossover. Matt Mitrione obviously doing very well. Brendan Schaub having some success. But yeah, not a real common one. I think the bigger thing is that he's an elite athlete. The guy's a beast. He's a hoss. It'll be interesting to see what he can do and how much that athleticism makes up for a lack of skill and experience going up against these veterans in the heavyweight division, which historically, let's be honest about it, has been one of the weaker divisions in the UFC in particular, if not MMA on the whole. Hopefully he can start bringing some money in, bring some of these other big pro athletes. I would love to see some NFL players with those long, rangy arms. Taller guys get in there. Yeah, it'd be fun. Mix it up. All right, guys. It's Ghostface. I'm out.